Well, hello, everyone. It is Shooter. Hey, we're going to take a look at weekend box scores, swing trade notes edition. Of course, at the end of the presentation, please review our disclosures. Now, let's jump right into the dollar here. Looks like we head maybe to 103, so we should have additional market weakness till we get there. That's the thought. Now, just like I mentioned last week, there's nothing that guarantees that we won't continue higher. Part of the reason is because I'm looking at the structure. We have a confirmed low, a divergent low, and then we continued this divergence through this whole leg, basically. And then we put in a new confirmed low here. So right now, I'm looking at this number as, hey, I'm looking for at least one more low. Now, there's no rule on how high this back test can go. Actually, we could go 50% of the leg, all the way back up to 107, and it wouldn't negate the pattern at this point. However, the counts would change if we get that high. But at this point, I think we do go to the 200-day and resistance. That would be a good logical spot. Not only that, the way the count looks, it sort of looks like it's starting to roll over here a little bit. So this could be it as well on the flip side of the coin. So we get a push or continued strength in the dollar, and we stay continually weak in indices. Basically, that's how simple it is. All right, looking at TLT, I still think we put in this lower low in price and higher low in RSI. So I think we get below this 91.85, even with our little bit of a bounce that we have here. That's just my thought. The way the pattern looks, I think we're going to continue just that little bit lower. And then we'll see how markets handle that. Because usually we get a decent bounce off those lows. Notice how we got this bounce. We had this really nice gap, boom, but here we're not gapping. We gapped to the downside, filled the gap, went right to the base of the other gap, and then rejected it. So to me, it looks like it's going to continue. When I look at the other gaps to the downside, when we gapped and back tested, filled the gap, what do? We put in these rough candles to the downside. So we'll follow it from there and just keep you up to date. Now, looking at earnings this week, I think Walmart and Deere on Friday are probably the two most important ones this week, simply because of how big their moats are. Deere has been doing fairly well and been getting a bid. Retail, I think, and I think commercials have even been jumping in a little bit there. So, I think by the end of this week, if we have not gotten some kind of pump from earnings, I don't think we're going to get one. So, but I don't know that Walmart's going to give that to us. I mean, we have a couple of other things, Rockwell Medical, HUD 8, Green Power, Rumble, Getty Images, even AST Space Mobile, is one that I'm watching, after the close on Monday. JD will give us a little insight into China, which I think we all know it's just going to be weak. And, Wolfspeed and Cisco, will give us, a little look at what semis. Now, right now I'm seeing a little weakness as we're going into Sunday night, especially in semis. They're leading us down at this point. But last week, now we opened a position in Oxy. 7250 calls in November. Probably very liberal on the time frame there. I just want to make sure I had enough time, with how volatile this market was. I was using the 8-day as my stop, so I'm way the heck down there. Basically, they'll be worthless if it rejects. But to the upside, we were up about 11% when I looked a few minutes ago. So Hive is a trade on Bitcoin, and it's going to be here a little while. I don't plan on closing this. I think I'm just going to stay there. Bitfarms is the same circumstance, and GBTC as well. But I brought GBTC back in this week because at this point I think we're really close to getting the spot ETF. So I have a little more conviction, and I'm not recalling the ETF that. I'm just have a blank tonight. But they were supposed to get an answer from the SEC by the 15th, so maybe that gives us a little light there. I don't think it's a matter of if we get a spot Bitcoin ETF. I think it's a matter of when. So, at that point, I'm still scaling in and going to continue to do so. I'm not going to change that regardless of the upside. Now, like I mentioned, my conviction short swing trade ideas, CBRE, Airbnb, Home Builders, XHB. Now, that's the strength there. So that's got to really roll over, but I will keep those up to date in the chat. Now, looking at the indices, I think the SPY goes to maybe 441, or that what the count says. However, I have some reservations there because it's not really deep enough. If I look at wave 2 of the leg, and typically wave 3 is equal. So, we could get a a drawdown all the way to 400, and it's not going to invalidate this 5 up here. As a matter of fact, it'll probably extend it. So, with continued market weakness, I think we have a lot against it. I think China is not helping us at all. With the circumstances coming out of there, I think that's just going to continue to be headwinds. I think the exchange rate is going to continue to be headwinds. I think the Fed's policy as far as higher rates is going to continue to be headwinds. And now we're hearing a little turmoil in the bond market. The bond markets could cause us a decent dump if liquidity dries up, as a result of margin calls there, because will be how it happens. It'll just be an overnight event where everybody is just like, hey, I'm not keeping this risk anymore. I don't like this here. 430, 435. At that point, we could come right down to the 200-day around 410 off of that. So just keep an eye on bonds, because I think that's going to be a big factor. I think liquidity in the markets are the biggest factor. Now, NASDAQ looks a little bit rougher, maybe down to 359. Now, according to what I saw in the FANGs, when I just looked at them, we have some weakness in Nvidia. We have some weakness in Microsoft. We have some weakness in Apple. Amazon and Google has been our strength, as well as Meta. So, those three roll over. Those are our generals right now. And, the funny thing is in bear markets, typically all of them come off. And when we have sort of a two-directional market, we're really seeing what we have here. Now, that doesn't limit the downside either, nor does it limit the upside. So, we're in a directional market. Basically, we can go up or we can go down, but it's going to be within a range, because now I'm looking at the 21 days. So, obviously we get below the 21 day, we're looking for a continuation. All right, taking a look at Bitcoin, still in this flat. I think we're here for a while. If you look at this first leg here, this first shelf, that was roughly from March to June. So, we could be looking at September to October here before we get a bounce out of here. However, at this point, it says it's soon. So unless this count changes a little bit, there would be nothing that would prohibit this C from being extended down here to support at March 22 to support at 26606. There would be nothing that would prohibit that. Looking at Ethereum, we're still in this flat. It looks better than Bitcoin, and I mentioned that last week, but we've done nothing. We're just sort of stuck right here. So, the one thing that catches my attention here is notice where our resistance is at 23.6, and we got right up there. Had a nice close on the candle. And look at this flush that we got after that. We just gave it all back. Now look at where we got to that resistance again, and we flushed, but we didn't give it all back, but then we bled and basically gave 75% back. So we get up here again, then we have less. So in other words, the range of the drawdown has, slendered down a little bit, so we have sort of this ascending triangle here, which I don't actually have drawn on the chart, which usually resolves itself to the upside. So I'm fairly confident we get something to the upside, but the question is it here or is it in April 24? Because we could be here forever, because this is not the demeanor that we've had, other than this leg right down here, in this uptrend at all. We've not had flats that have been this long. None of them, and even on the breakdowns, none of the flats have been that long. So, the demeanor has changed of Ethereum. So, but that's what I have for this weekend, folks. Great trading. Until next time.